Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out tonight. Hope you settle in because it's a big. Um, the exits in the room. That's the door you came in. You can go out, get out that way. That door goes directly outside. This goes through my office and out into the hall, so you can get out that way. That's not an exit, so don't go that way. First on our agenda tonight, we have a public hearing about the fire contracts. And before we start that public hearing, I'll give you just a little lowdown on where we are. This contract that we met, it was Julia, Steve, and I met with both the fire companies in the village of Round Lake. And this proposed contract is a 3-year contract for the years 2025 to 2027. The intent is to try to make up for the previous multi-year contract that had no increase during the time of record inflation. So the graphic up there kind of, shows you that the years that they got 0% increase are when we had, 6.6% inflation. So this contract proposes in year 1 an increase of $100,000, in year 2 $22,455,000, and in year 3 $22,904. That represents 7% in year 1 and 2% in years 2 and 3. The multi-year contract is something that's town preferred because it gives us really an advantage when we're trying to prepare our annual budget. There are other provisions in this contract that are new. There are provisions that allow the reopening of the contract under certain conditions, one of them being, 7% inflation. And just another remark I want to make before we open the public hearing, in light of concerns regarding the Village of Round Lake's contribution to the fire service, I met with the mayor of Round Lake, and here's a couple of things that come from it. First, the village has a village tax that supports all village departments, including their fire department. It's a tax that the rest of the town of Malta does not pay. The fire department makes up about 40% of the treasurer's time in the village, or $28,000, and 10% of the village clerk's time, or $4,400. In the past, the Round Lake Hose Company has reimbursed the village $12,000 for these services, and I'm told that in the next fiscal year, the village has agreed to discontinue the reimbursement. So this is a public hearing. We'll open the public hearing, and anyone choosing to speak, please step up to the podium. Nobody? Okay, well, we'll close the public hearing at 6:03. And we will, this contract was discussed by the board in executive session. Are there any other comments or questions from my fellow board members regarding the contract? Okay, we'll move on. We have a presentation by New York Development for a mixed-use development on Route 9. This is a plan development application that has been submitted to the planning department.
The application has been submitted?
The application has been submitted, yes. There are a couple of things. Planning department is still working up what the fees might be, so they haven't quite gotten that far yet. And this, of course, is a presentation or a plan development district that we actually, before the application was submitted, this board met with the applicant on 3 different occasions for workshops and talked about what we liked about it, what we didn't like about it, and now this is what has come back to us. And I believe we have presenting for us Mr. Scott Lansing. I'm just killing time until he actually gets it up there.
Good evening, Scott Lansing with Lansing Engineering, representing the 2354 Route 9 mixed-use plan development district. representing New York Development Group Malta LLC. I do have with me the applicants.
Is that microphone on?
There we go. Is that
Thank
better?
you.
Yes, okay, sorry about that. I do have the applicants with me this evening, Mr. Jeffrey Booth and Mr. Jeff Knox. As was mentioned, we have been working with the town board for quite some time, refinements to the plan, and we're here this evening to update the board on where we are with the overall plan and obtain any comments from the town board. And then we would like to work towards advancing towards a referral from the town board to the planning board so we can then get feedback from the planning board as a part of the overall PDD process. So what I have before you is the existing conditions plan. So Route 9 is on the bottom of the screen. North orientation is off towards the right. We do have the Round Lake bypass in this vicinity. Overall parcel is approximately 127.15 acres. It is comprised of 6 parcels overall that make up that acreage. The parcel is mostly vacant except for out in the front of the parcel. There are 2 structures out there, not in great shape, that are existing, but outside of that, there are no structures on the overall parcel. Is zone C2, R1, and LC. The C2 zone is basically all the area on the front of the parcel. There is an R2 area roughly in the middle, and then from this white line back is LC zoned area. As far as wetlands, we have done a wetland delineation. There are some Army Corps wetlands, and there is a DEC wetland way back in the back of the parcel down in this vicinity. As far as what is being proposed, the proposal does include the demolition of the structures along Route 9. And there would be commercial proposed along the front of the parcel. So this is not a part of any sort of a zone change associated with the parcel. The area in the front would be proposed to be developed in accordance with the underlying C2. So we're not proposing any sort of change to that C2 zoning. There would be an area in the front where two areas where structures could be built equaling approximately 40,000 square feet. And the area of those 2 areas is approximately 5.31 acres overall. As far as the back portion of the parcel, that is where the zone change is proposed, a mix of residential uses. First off, on the south side, we are proposing 14 single-family homes. Those would be on 5,000 square foot lots, 1 to 2 story structures, and they would have attached garages with each one of those single-family structures. Those lots are configured similar to the form-based code, the RD2 zone, which is a zone in the form-based code that we took the requirements from. Next over are townhome lots. We are proposing 43 townhome lots. Each one of those lots would be roughly 3,300 square feet. Would be a mix of 2 to 4 unit buildings. So actually I'm going to switch. This is a blow up. The last one was just to give the board an idea overall of the overall parcel. So 2 to 4 unit buildings. There are some 3s mixed in there as well. That comprises the 43 units. They would be 2-story structures with attached garages. Next to the north are condominium units. They are 4 unit buildings. 2-story structures, and they would have attached 2-car garages. So every single unit would have an attached 2-car garage. We do have the clubhouse facility in this vicinity with parking. And then last but not least, we have the multifamily to the far north. There are 12 10-unit buildings for 120 units overall. So if you're keeping track of the number as I went through that, that's 293 units. As we did mention, we have been working with the town board for some time. The last time we were before the board, we did have a bubble sketch, which kind of outlined general use areas, which is consistent with the general bubble sketch, but we had 350 units in that. So we have gone from 350 to the 293. As far as access, we are proposing a mix of town roadways and private driveways, in that this is proposed as a town road through this area with potential future access towards the north. The apartments would have a private driveway, condominiums, most likely a private driveway, and then the townhomes and the single family would be proposed as town roads. As far as parking, we do meet all the town's requirements in that 710 spaces would be required. We're in excess of that of 734 spaces. As far as utilities, water would be town of Malta for the water, Saratoga County Sewer District for the sewer, and then stormwater would be managed on site. We do have conceptual locations for stormwater management areas that would be refined, hopefully during the planning board site plan review process. As far as the community benefits, we feel there are several things associated with the plan. First off, the demolition of the structures in the front of the parcel is a part of that commercial. In my opinion, I think they're unsightly structures and something that would be nice to have raised in that area. There are the mix of uses, which we think provides a benefit to the town as far as different types of uses, different size of residential uses. There is the commercial in the front, which is in accordance with the zoning and the master plan. Buffers and screening, I am going to flip back to the previous plan because a lot of what we propose kind of zooms in on that area, but I think this really drives home as far as the open space and the buffers. I-87 is up in this area, a tremendous buffer to I-87, Round Lake Bypass on the south side, tremendous buffer to that area. There is the existing residential community to the north. The applicants have committed to a minimum of a 100-foot buffer in that area, and then the open space in the center with the linkage. Last but not least, there was a request for a buffer along the front of the parcel in this vicinity that has been added. Maybe not highlighted on this particular plan as much as I want to, but it is something that the applicants have committed to. We also have the 1.5 acre active passive open space area in the center. There is a connection, parking area and a connection back to the Zim Smith Trail in the western portion of the parcel. And then last but not least, the applicants are proposing a sidewalk system. There is a project to the south that is proposing sidewalks from this location to the south. There is an existing sidewalk system by the roundabout for the bypass, which also connects to the Zim Smith Trail. And then they're proposing 2,800 linear feet of sidewalk to extend off this plan and to the north to Taddeo Drive. My understanding the town has some grant money and a project in place to extend sidewalks to Taddeo. So that will essentially have a sidewalk system from Dunning Street in the center of town and points north down to the south all the way to the Round Lake Bypass and the Zim Smith Trail and all that area. So we feel that is a tremendous benefit. So that is essentially it for the updates on the project. Again, we're here for questions and comments from the board and ultimately work towards referral from this board to the planning board. Thank you very much.
Mr. Lansing, you saying the residential unit area is zoned RA2?
No, the single-family residential, the size of the lots, configuration of the lots, we mirrored those after the RD2 zone in the form-based code, which is a 5,000 square foot lot with certain setbacks and requirements. So it was just something we hinged off from the form-based code as something that we applied to this. But more or less 5,000 square foot lots in that single-family area.
The area right now is zoned R1, correct?
This area right here, I believe this is C2 back to this back line right here. So I believe C2 goes right about in this line right here, and the RD2 is past that.
You must have an updated map. My map shows it as R1, C2 in the front and R1 in the back.
I think it is R1.
So this is the,
When they were building
Right.
the retirement homes.
Right, the purple area there.
But the yellow's R1, correct?
correct, so this map is rotated. So this is Route 9 and the bypass here. So the single family is right in this area in the C2 zone. So in our opinion, a less intense use than the C2.
Okay.
So
You also, in April, during the workshop, you had increased the single-family homes to 20. And this proposal presentation, you're down to 14.
Yes, yeah, the area is the same, the bubble is the same. Quite honestly, that's the problem with bubble sketches. We took a look at that bubble. That bubble at the time was 4.5 acres for that single-family residential area. We tried to provide an estimate. 4.5 acres equals approximately 196,000 square feet. We divided that by 5,000 square feet per lot. We came up with 39 lots. We decreased that by roughly 25% to account for right-of-ways and just inefficiencies in lot layouts because of it's not a perfect 5,000 square feet. Unfortunately, that area where we have the single family, very irregular shape, and we're running the town right-of-way through there, so we obviously didn't yield as much as we had hoped for in that bubble. But that's the unfortunate part of a bubble sketch, and the formal plan flushes that out and identifies exactly what's available in that area.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Regarding the community benefit, recently I've had and several others have had discussion with a group that are concerned about overall community benefits. And to sum the whole thing up, it was kind of agreed upon that it would be good for the town board to create a list of different benefits that the town would like to have, needs versus wants, etc. So I'm a little up on the air on that at this time, but overall, I like the plan. But I am concerned about the community benefit.
Sure.
I mean, one of the main things that is addressed in our comprehensive plan is the improvement to pedestrian accesses really throughout town. And the one thing that I see is very favorable in the community benefit is this basically gives access to the Zim Smith Trail from High Point to the north to the Round Lake Bypass to the south at this time. And I'm happy to see the other connection through the property to the Zim Smith. So, I think that adds up to a reasonable, in my opinion.
I don't believe the public benefit commensurates with the development density that's being proposed here. I don't like the apartments. I would like to keep the zone, it's zoned R1, C2, and any development that fits that need shy of a permit, which R1 allows. That's what I would like to see.
I have another question. You've said, take down the unsightly buildings on the two commercial. I mean, would it be more than just demolishing the buildings and kind of making that look a little more attractive? Or,
I think just taking those buildings down initially would be a
that's true.
improvement.
Particularly the one of them, yeah.
I'm not sure what else we could do. I think it's something we could still talk about. I'm not sure what else we would do at
Right.
this point. The hope would be as we kind of work through the process and we get closer, when we know there's a project, that we could start marketing these pieces for
Yeah.
development and, hopefully bring somebody in sooner rather than later.
Because that also is another concern with this types of development. I mean, it happens a lot. It's happened with other developments on Route 9. The homes get built, which, arguably, all of New York State and probably all of the Northeast needs housing. But then the commercial never gets built. And here in Malta, I mean, we need the commercial development on Route 9. So is there a plan to, market those and actually,
We've actually had conversations with some interested parties, but they really wanted to be part of the overall community, I think, and until the project moves forward a little bit further, and we're able to, to show them exactly what we're going to do, that nothing's gonna happen on those. But at some point in the future, I think so, but we would certainly market the properties, yes.
and I know that was Barbara's concern, but one of Barbara's concerns was the buffer between the commercial and the residential. And like you said, Scott, it's not really shown adequately on that, but another plan will show it more
We
adequately.
have committed to doing that. We showed plans in the past where we showed fencing along the back sides of the commercial, street trees along the road that parallels the commercial on both sides that we would commit to putting in.
Yeah.
Until something goes in there, obviously, there's nothing to really buffer, but at that point in time, certainly that would be on any final plans that we develop.
I mean, overall, I'm not unhappy with it. Like I say, I think the community benefit is reasonable. I mean, there are things that, of course, we don't know yet. There's no traffic study. Yeah, there's things that until it gets deeper into the project, you just won't know. I know originally there were, I think, 250 apartments, and after conversations with the board, you cut those down to less than half of what the original plan was, so, I appreciate that effort. So most of it is actually a path to ownership.
Right, we've dropped down the number of units substantially from the initial proposal, and even now, as Scott talked about, some of the density has gone down a little bit. We've gone from 350 down to 293. Still the commitment to build the sidewalk, and a 2,800 linear foot of sidewalk, 5 feet wide along a state right of way is not an inexpensive endeavor at all. And we're still committed to doing that in spite of the fact that, it's less, or it's more money per unit when you amortize it across the 293 units. But we're still committed to doing that because that's what we promised to do. So.
As far as the cleanup at the gas station, is that planned also?
Yeah, that's
The
what's been.
soil,
Yeah, we'll have to go
Anything
through all
else?
that process as we move forward with the project, yes.
okay, is there any state dollars that are helping to fund this at all?
No.
No?
No, and also, just to make it clear to the board, we have not proposed, none of the housing units in here are proposed to be subsidized by any state or federal organization. These are meant to be attainable housing opportunities for people, and we've talked about this in the past, whether it be firemen or policemen or teachers, people in the community that just can't afford $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 homes. And there's a huge opportunity, in spite of the fact that there are some apartments in here, which I still think is a good use, there's a lot of opportunity for sale by owner or ownership opportunities here for people to buy, be part of the community, and then maybe at some point down the road, they're able to buy a more expensive home. But there's a huge opportunity for people to become vested in the community with a project like this. And we also see, and we've done this in other communities, the people that rent apartments, many of those people will end up becoming full-time residents. They may be part-time now, whether they're traveling nurses or teachers or they work at Global Foundries, but eventually these people often become part of the community. I think
That's
we need
what we
a
want.
diverse housing stock. I know the town has a fair amount of apartments already, but we really, we're trying to offer a multitude of housing opportunities throughout the development. And a majority of this is in fact a for sale or ownership opportunity, housing opportunity.
Al,
Thank you, Jeff.
comments?
I'm against the project.
Barb?
One of the things that has become very clear to me over the past few months is that what people, when they buy a home, what they don't like is surprises 2 or 3 years after they've bought that home. I know that in some developments, the board in previous years has gone so far as to ask that certain information be included on the deed. For example, proximity to the raceway. This has proximity to, we don't know what kind of commercial development. I'm not sure how to solve that problem, but I do know that homeowners don't like later surprises. I think there's a big difference between putting a dentist's office in front of your home versus a Burger King or something like that. Do you have any suggestions on how to fairly alert prospective home buyers that commercial development could and probably will eventually go into vacant land in front of their homes?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a problem occasionally. There are times when the commercial development is adjacent and maybe it's wooded and people don't quite realize that there's commercial development there. I would say that in this instance, you're driving down a boulevard and there will be for sale signs for the commercial, as we talk about, development in the front. I think there's probably an opportunity for us to work through some language that we could add to the deeds down the road to make it apparent to people that the zoning, at that time is commercial zoning, so that people are aware. I don't have a problem with people understanding and knowing, and it does prevent some issues down the road. I'm not gonna lie to you, we've had opportunities where people come in down the road and you develop an adjacent parcel and they come in and they oppose it. They're oftentimes the same people that bought in the new community and then they don't want anything next to them. So if there's an opportunity to complain to the town, they will. But I don't think we have a problem with some sort of information in a deed that would alert people to the fact that there's commercial property out front. Yeah,
I think that would be a good idea. Thank you.
certainly.
I mean, what I would like to propose, if the board agrees, is to, our next meeting is January 6th, to sit on this, maybe review it, get some, well, comments to both Scott and Jeff about how things you might like to see. And then if we are going to refer it on January 6th. Or we can have another workshop, whatever the board's pleasure is.
I have no problem doing another workshop. Where I stand on this is it's zone C2 and R1, and that's what I'll approve, something that fits those zoning. Under R1, you can request a special permit for two-family dwellings. I'm willing to discuss that also. As far as this PDD, I will now approve it.
Craig? Barb? You want to have a workshop, or?
I don't need a workshop on it. I'd like to sit on it for a small amount of time, and then at that time, refer it over to the planning.
As you pointed out, Sid, that we've had 3 workshops. We've made multiple modifications to the plan as requested by the board. And at the final workshop, all 5 board members said they thought it was a good project that we should move forward with. I understand that things change from time to time, but we did work through and make, I think, significant changes to the plan as per the board's recommendations and suggestions.
To clarify, I never said it was a good project. I was willing to let it go forward, and this is at that point now. I never liked the apartments. I still don't like the apartments.
Well, we'll revisit it then on January 6th and see where it goes from there. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we will start our meeting. We start with the salute to the flag, so if you'll please stand, if you are able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Stand for a moment of silence. Let's maybe think about the family in Malta that recently lost their home due to a fire. Thank you. So next, I'll entertain a motion to accept the town clerk's minutes from December 2nd.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, how about comments from town residents? I want to remind you, it's not a question and answer period. If you have questions that you really want to be addressed, then send them in writing and we will address them.
If I have an answer for you, I'll answer it.
Yeah, sure, and state your name, and I think somebody was coming up behind you, but she beat you up there, Susan.
Okay, Angela McFarland, 3422 Ellsworth Boulevard, Malta. And I did see the agenda tonight, so I raced like a crazy person to do letters to the board, make photocopies, and I'm gonna give you the abridged version, okay? But I got it covered. So I'm here tonight to talk about the property maintenance ordinance in the town of Malta. First, tremendous thanks and appreciation to you, Supervisor Young, for being available, transparent, quick to respond. Attorney Gottman for, representing the town and pointing me, to the right departments and so forth. But I have to give a huge amount of accolades to Greg Berg and Rob Eggins from Code Enforcement. Same thing, quick to respond, good with resources. I hate to say it, but it's not common these days. So it's been amazing. So as the community grows and responsibilities of government agencies change, for example, the move of the Saratoga County Health Department, I'm interested in asking the board to review their property maintenance law. The one that I found is dated April 3rd, 2000, and consider amending some of the language for enforcement clarity. And if there is anything newer, I just simply haven't found it yet. So The current law is clear about expectations for a sanitary and hazard-free environment for citizens of Malta and for the maintenance of residential and commercial premises, and specifying a residential premises. As owners or tenants, it defines private property, residents, and does say including landlords and tenants. Section 4 says all residential and commercial premises within the town shall be maintained in conformity with the provision of the ordinance. The packets are just a sampling of literally the physical hazards, the rodent harborage, the infestation at Ellsworth Commons across the street. It is a small peek, what you're going to see, into the garbage, the rubbish, the debris, the vermin, and litter. There has been no regular sanitation or cleaning contractor for the common areas for 312 tenant units. There is no weekend maintenance or cleaning staff. And the leasing staff has boasted about a 96% occupancy rate. The reason these things aren't handled, even though they're in their lease, is that it's not in the budget or overtime isn't improved. But there was money for paint striping and to paint and do carpets that haven't been vacuumed since the installation. The property is riddled with dog feces. They don't enforce their dog pickup. They put the netting up on the garages, but they didn't do anything to deter the pigeons. So there's literally bird droppings everywhere. Well, that gets walked through and trafficked through all the common areas. Now, there are now new reports of cockroaches. I realize mice and birds are not considered rodents or vermin, but when those things aren't cleaned up, when the droppings aren't cleaned up, they actually attract mice, cockroaches. They feed on those things. The issue that, we're having, I've spoken out, I've been retaliated against, but that's not why I'm here. I'm here to talk specifically about understanding in good, clear language who's responsible for enforcing. The county health department says it's the town. The town has said, no, it's private property. So where do people go? Usually people get mad, they break their leases. This is a company that's taking advantage of a hot rental market. They just replace the faces. And I don't say that lightly. You will see in here published news reports from the Business Review. There have been millions. The number last I looked was 400 million pumped into the capital region over the past 3 years. And part of those agreements with Acre and Prime companies, properties are purchased from Prime, then Prime stays on as the property management. Millions, but there's not money for public sanitation. And there are deceptive online Google reviews from the partner 2 weeks ago. When we have our overseas guests come over here looking for housing, maybe their only choice is to rely on online reviews. And when those are deceptive, then what? So even though other countries, this still might be better than where they're coming from, it still doesn't change the fact that this is a public health hazard. So in the time it takes for people, if they have the means or the understanding to file a civil claim, they're still incurred with the expenses, the nuisance, the inconvenience of having to move when they were brought into a situation that the owners had no intention of delivering upon. So what I'd like to head into the new year doing is just continuing to talk and really look at this, the property maintenance ordinance specifically. I think it might be time to update it, and even the penalties in there haven't kept up with inflation. Maybe it's time to really motivate some of our less than credible developers to provide what they say they're going to provide at the bare minimum. Health and sanitation for the people that live here. So
Thank you,
I made
Angela.
a bunch of copies. I dug under my seat for paper clips. I only found 5. So
If you leave them with Jen, we'll make sure everybody gets them.
awesome.
take care
You
of
have
it.
paper clips?
Yeah. We do have some paper clips. We
And of
have a
course, I'll
couple
find
extra.
a million paper clips when I don't need them. I have
Um,
copies.
Yeah, so if you just, if she'll distribute them to us if you want to just leave them with John.
And really, thank you
Yep.
to everybody who's
Yep.
been responsive so far. I really appreciate it.
Yep, and we'll take a look at that ordinance. I do have a little report once you're done there. I will say, can report that last week code enforcement met with the management last week
Oh,
and,
Rob has been
okay,
amazing,
yep.
really thorough, so I can't say enough.
He characterized that meeting as very productive. And he then, code enforcement did spend 2 days inspecting all 4 buildings last week. They did find some violations that will need to be addressed. They're working with the management for that. And just to, satisfy the board, they have reported to me that unlike steeplechase, none of the issues rise to the level that needs, at this time, town board intervention. So that from our code enforcement.
Are they gonna solve the problem?
Yes, but Rob is working with them for that, so.
Who is your management company?
It's Prime Companies.
Prime.
And I don't want to take up too much time, but there are promises. This has been a pattern going back to about 2000. So we'll see. Proof is in the pudding.
Okay, Susan?
Thank you, Angela.
My name is Susan Coveney. I live at 9 Featherfoil Way in Luther Forest. And it's hard to follow that. But,
I usually am. Don't feel bad.
oh, okay. I want to talk about the, let me see, was it 2354 Route 9 presentation? And specifically, I want to talk about the proposed public benefit. I walk that Zim Smith Trail frequently. I walk it by myself, I walk it with friends, I walk it with my dogs. And I've been doing that for about 8 to 10 years now. And being kind of a curious walker, I have actually taken a look at, there is a kind of a trail that hooks in there, at least there must have been at one time. But I've tried to walk that, and it's impossible, you'd have to be a goat. So I was kind of excited when I looked at the proposal and they said, oh, you can get to, from the clubhouse, there's gonna be a little trail, you can go down. Well, I looked at that twice and I was thinking, well, that would really be nice, but that doesn't work. You'd have to be a goat that if you go through the bypass, there's a big cut through it. And then as you go along, you look down and there's a creek down there. Unless the developer does a lot of work to make that path accessible, nobody is going to be able to use it. And then what I heard tonight was, oh, well, you can access it by way of the sidewalk. Well, it's one thing to want to take maybe a 3 or 4 mile walk. By the time you walk down the sidewalk, past the roundabout, into Round Lake, past Round Lake to get to the Zim Smith Trail, you've had your walk before you get to the Zim Smith Trail. So I think that their proposed benefit is a little optimistic. And before the board accepts it, I would encourage you to send somebody out to actually try to access it. I don't think that works.
Yeah, good point.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, Peter Brooks from Nelson Avenue Extension. Good to see you all again. I also wanted to talk about the New York Development Group proposal. 3 things. I wanted to talk about zoning and benefits and the future. About zoning, most of this property is zoned as land conservation, meaning that because it's in the steep valley corridor of Ballston Creek, most of it shouldn't be developed at all. The strip on Route 9 is zoned commercial, and the small level portion up above the valley is zoned residential 1, meaning single-family housing. That designation was made for good reasons. Our comprehensive plan encourages any more new dense housing to be built near the center of town, near the intersection of Routes 9 and 67. One of our plan's recommendations for the neighborhood we're looking at here is, and I quote, discourage the use of planned development districts. and that's what this proposal is, that results in higher density development. Recommendation right for that neighborhood. So let's be clear, the New York Development Group is asking that the rules not apply to them. Next, it's pretty clear what the zoning says and why. Next, let's talk about benefits. I can't detect any, quote, substantial benefits not otherwise available under the town's existing zoning, end quote, again from the zoning law, that this proposal would bring to the residents of Malta. But there's a very substantial benefit that this proposal would bring to the New York Development Group. And that is obviously significantly higher profits for them, probably a couple of $1 million higher than if they obeyed the zoning and simply developed the property as now prescribed by our zoning law and comprehensive plan. I think it's pretty clear who would get the lion's share of benefits here. Finally, let's talk about the future. I did a little research today. Since the Northway came through, Malta's population has grown from a little over 2,000 people to well over 17,000 people today. That's more than a 750% increase over the last 60 years. Decisions you all make today will shape what Malta becomes tomorrow. Do you think Malta should grow another 750% over the next 60 years? If you did, that would result in a population of over 134,000 people, which happens to be more than the combined populations of Albany and Troy put together. Abandoning our zoning and comprehensive plan and permitting developers to cram more dense housing onto properties like this takes us down that path. I sincerely hope we all have a better vision for that in our mind for our town. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
And I wanted to add in, after we heard the presentation about Ellsworth Commons, witness all the potential problems that can come with big apartment complexes. Thanks.
Thanks, Peter. Anyone else?
Hi, good evening. My name's Kelly Beers. I live at 4 Settlers Ridge South in Malta. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak. I was unable to attend the meeting on December 2nd, but my husband was here, and I was really disappointed when he came home and told me that after the presentation about Camber Ridge, prior to public comment, there was a vote about whether or not to hold a workshop. And I think that should probably be reconsidered. So as a resident of Malta, I would hope that you would listen to the public before making any decisions. I was surprised to hear that with this development that was presented tonight, you've had 3 workshops, and I would love for you to give the opportunity to this other development opportunity to speak. I heard Supervisor Young say tonight that Route 9 needs development. We need more housing in Malta that's affordable, and we need commercial opportunities. And from my understanding, this is an opportunity for that at Camber Ridge. I am a professional, I'm a physician. I moved to this area a little over 5 years ago. When I moved here, I was not in a position to purchase a home. I moved to the Capital District from New York City, and I had to rent because I was brand new to the area. I was just getting my foot in the door. If we want young professionals and young families in Malta, we need places those people could live. As a physician, I am unable to care for patients the way I need to because nurses cannot afford to live in this area. Techs cannot afford to live in this area. I have a dialysis unit that can't open because we can't hire people to staff it because people can't afford to live in the area. We need housing. And Ellsworth Commons, unfortunately, is a mess, and we all know it, but it's poorly run. So if we have a place that people can buy housing when they're starting out their professional careers, firefighters, police officers, my husband works for the state police, we have young kids. We feel very passionately about this town, and we really want it to succeed. And we think that as the board of our town, who are elected representatives, that we really would appreciate if you would give opportunity to the developers for the Camber Ridge project to really present what their plan is, explore it, look at whether it would benefit the town or not, and then get public feedback on what that opportunity is. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for an opportunity to talk with you folks. I wanted to speak to the decision at the last meeting about not moving forward with a workshop for Camber Ridge. And I was a little troubled that several of the folks had already just made up their minds and really didn't tell us why, from the board members, why they oppose something. Educate us, teach us, why is this not a good project? And then, we saw the presentation on this that had benefited from at least 3 workshops. So this is all a learning process for everybody involved in this. It's a give and take between the board, the community, the developers, and everything else. And I agree with a couple of the comments about, developers, yeah, they want to make their money. There's no problem with that, and I think we all know that to be the case. But I would urge a decision to move forward with at least a workshop. It doesn't commit anybody to anything, but it gets the reasoning out. It gets the community's understanding of what the board is looking at. This has been, the last 20 minutes has been very instructive as to some of the things that you folks are dealing with. But I would ask that this Camber Ridge be given an opportunity to have the workshop. Let's get it out there. Sounds like density is an issue. We're talking 700 unit apartments for that, or combined housing. But I do have to agree with the doctor who just spoke. If you want your community to be vital, you've got to get some housing in here for the people who are just out of college, who are just starting their careers. Global Foundries is about to expand again, and just the whole medical field around here. I want doctors and nurses to take care of my old body. I'm not getting any younger. And it's important to me to have good health care in this area, and I think that's vital to any town, and an obligation really to the community that's going to live there. So if the opportunity presents itself, I would ask you folks to reconsider and maybe schedule an initial workshop and help us understand what the issues are from your perspective. Thank you.
Thank you.
Peter Young. Yeah.
Anyone else?
Greetings, Town Board. My name is Michael Gage of Lakeshore Drive, Town of Malta. And I just wanted to speak to the proposal here, the development this evening. I can't remember the name of it or the address. And I just want to make 2 points. One, I feel like the ask on behalf of the developer is a little much in terms of density, in terms of the zoning change, to go from C2 and R1 to a 293 unit residential area. It seems like a very big ask, particularly in light of my second point, which is the public benefit. I don't see a single trail that moves people from Route 9 to Zim Smith as being significant enough of a public benefit to offset the public cost of this proposal. I work in the field, I'm a consultant, I work in the field of parks and recreation, I work across the country on park projects. The proposed trail that connects, that the developer was suggesting was going to connect downtown Malta up here, the corners of 9 and 67 with the Zim Smith, that is not going to be, the pathway is not going to be used that way. People are not going to walk a mile down Route 9 to go access nature. Right? They're going to go drive and park at Ruley Road, which is what they do right now. That's not no park planner would ever design that sort of a scenario. So I would encourage you to look at the other 30 acres or so that is behind the white dotted line on their bubble plat sheet that's zoned LC. And I would encourage you all to work with the developer to get donation of that entire portion donated to the town of Malta or to a local land trust, or at the very least a conservation easement that provides a public access. That would include those 30 acres. Those 30 acres could develop about a 1.5 mile trail system, and that would be a public benefit. That would be a place where people can leave the Zim Smith Trail, get on the trolley trail, and then access nature into those 30 acres of woodlands. So to reiterate, the planning as it is, this scheme that it is now, it is too dense. It is that represents a tax increase on the existing residents of this town from the number of additional students in the schools. And the public benefit as it's been proposed here is insufficient. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else interested in public comment? Okay, we'll move on. Next is comments from the town board and department heads, and as usual, I have a few comments. First, our next meeting is on January 6th. That meeting is a regular business meeting like we have every month, but it also is the organizational meeting. At that meeting, we appoint positions to our volunteer boards and other people that need to be reappointed, and we assign basically services, and some of those services we'll be talking about later. I want to note that I have had several correspondences regarding the Speedway development proposal, and I have asked the clerk to put those in the official record. So if, anybody should be able to see those once the minutes are done. As you know, as a result of the adoption of our comprehensive plan in 2023, we have to go through a basically rezoning to adopt some of the changes that were recommended. And our consultant, Barton and LaJudas, has sent out a memo and a survey that went to all of the planning board, zoning board, and the HRPC, the Historic Preservation Review Commission. So once we get the results back from that, we'll have a little more information about how our volunteer boards see us moving forward. The town clerk has requested that license fees are actually increasing due to printing costs. So the state has authorized that she charge an extra $1 per license in order if they require that they be printed. So unless there's objection by the board, she's going to just start charging that $1 for the printing costs. Anybody object? The Parks and Rec Department, and more specifically, Elise Van Alstyne puts together every year the Multicultural Arts Festival. If you've never been, it's a great festival. It's a lot of fun, a lot of different cultural things from other cultures, but it's a lot of work. Soliciting the participants and advertising. So she has asked that we, in conjunction with our Director of Parks and Rec, that we have a new committee this year. And it would be the Multicultural Arts Committee. They put together a mission statement, which I'll read to you. Multicultural Arts Festival mission is to celebrate cultural diversity in Malta, surrounding communities by offering a one-day event of professional artists in various disciplines. The free event, indoors and out, at the Malta Community Center offers attendees and performances, workshops, and drop-in activities throughout the day. So it would be a committee similar to our Community Day Committee. They've selected some volunteers that they would like to see appointed that would basically help Kristen and Elise put together this fantastic event. So at our organizational meeting, I'm going to propose that new committee unless there is any objection from the board.
No objection.
Okay, next, I just want to commend, again, Elise Young. They had a successful performance of Babes in Toyland. It was an incredible show. And if you've never been to any of the Spotlight or theater shows, you really should go. They have huge casts, and the casts are from however young they can get to however old they can get. They have probably 5-year-olds to 70-year-olds performing, maybe even older than that. A lot of people, they're great performances, and we are lucky. I know that we are the only town in Saratoga County and perhaps the capital region, maybe the state, that actually has a theater program that does performances to this extent. So I don't know when the next one is, but you should try to go. Saratoga County is updating their hazardous mitigation plan. The draft update is available to the public at the entire plan for the entire county at saratogacountyny.gov. We have posted the Malta Annex, which basically, so the whole county has the whole thing. All of the towns have their portion. That has been posted on our town's website, and there's still time. If anybody looks at it, you see anything, you want any updates, there can still be updates. Just let me know, and I will send them to the county. And lastly, on my account, I want to talk a little bit about sales tax. In the month of November and up to December 15th, the sales tax in Saratoga County has gone down. In the month of November, it was 5.6% less. That results in $770,000 and then some. December through December 15th, it's a shortfall of 46,190. And of course, you know, the biggest part of our budget relies on the Saratoga County sales tax. And just one other thing to note, with the growth of cannabis dispensaries, we got the first report for the open cannabis dispensaries. And now there is one in Half Moon, there's one in Clifton Park, there's one in Saratoga. There's soon to be one on the corner of North Line Road and Route 50 in Ballston Spa. And the sales tax reports for those, the town of Half Moon, for one dispensary, for 1 month, the month of November, one dispensary in Half Moon resulted in a sales tax revenue for the town of Half Moon of $50,351,000. Waterford was $36,351,000, and Saratoga Springs was $42,602. And that's the money that went directly to the municipalities, not the county. Just of note.
So none of that tax revenue went to the county? It just all goes to the town?
That's the revenue that went to the town. Some revenue went to the county, but that's the revenue that went directly to the town.
What percentage went to the county? What percentage went to the town? Do you know?
I do not know. All I know
The
is,
reason why I voted against those is the social impact. You know, when you sit there and talk about the dollars and cents that they brought in, there's a social impact also that is very costly, very costly. And one example is when you didn't fund the sheriff's department.
we didn't fund the sheriff's department, not me.
You put that in your budget, though. I didn't vote for it. I did not vote for having cannabis shops in this town. I got several calls on that, and I still made a decision to say no, and anytime it's brought forward, as long as I'm on this board, I am a no. And I will not change that, no matter who's supervisor. So, thank you.
Nope, you're welcome to your opinion. I was just putting it
That's my
out there
opinion,
for information, little FYI. That's all I have. Anybody else have anything to remark on?
Yes, I have a statement.
Okay.
At the last town board meeting, Camber Ridge or Five Corners Development Group gave a presentation on a large apartment complex at the current site of Malta Speedway. Some of you tonight have already talked about it, asked some questions about it. Just to reiterate, this project would consist of upwards of 720 apartments, over 30 buildings, 12 of which would be 3-story buildings and 1 4-story building. Because the project does not meet our current zoning standards, such as an application needs to be approved by the town board through a Plan Development District application, or PDD, before it can go to the planning board. I'm against the project. I would love for the Speedway to stay there, but that's not my choice. A formal application was not submitted. It was just a public presentation. And we did not have a formal vote on its approval. We conducted an informal vote on whether or not we would meet with the developer in a workshop to discuss if the project would be supported by the town board, what they would have to do for the town board to approve it to go on to the planning board. The current zoning for the Speedway location is zoned Commercial District 7, C7. C7 allows for everything from a small commercial, drive-through, fast food restaurant, up to a large, giant retail box store. If someone drops off an application that meets C7, it immediately skips over the town board and goes right to the planning board. If it meets that standard, the planning board arguably has to approve it. The owner of the Speedway has been a long-standing taxpayer of our community. The Speedway has held charitable events where they raise money for childhood cancer research. Out of respect to this longstanding charitable business owner, I felt I had a moral obligation to at least meet with the developer to see if they're willing to develop something that met our zoning laws. My stance on PDDs has not changed. I am against approving any new PDD application until our zoning codes have been updated to meet our comprehensive plan. Per that plan, PDDs are to be discouraged, especially if it results in higher density development, especially if it's encroaching on land conservation, which is what the New York Development Group was proposing. The owner of the Speedway wants to sell their land. That land is Zone C7. I want to keep it commercial for the very reasons, Cynthia, you discussed, to raise tax revenue. This does beg the question, if not the Speedway, what type of commercial development do we want there? Do we want a large box store? If we don't, then we need to address this, what we'd want C7 to allow. If a project meets those zoning requirements, again, arguably, it will be approved by the Planning and Zoning Board. I once proposed a moratorium. Maybe we need to discuss whether we do a temporary moratorium or a moratorium is temporary in nature to at least until our zoning laws and codes come up in compliance with the 2023 comprehensive plan, a minimum at least on the Route 9 corridor, which is a very contentious subject, everybody in the town. Thank you.
The reason why I voted no on that workshop is because I spent a lot of time talking to the developer, going through his projects, and I asked him, I said, how is this project funded? You know what he said to me? It's state credits going back to his investors. And I said, okay, if that happens and it's affordable housing and you have a 30% vacancy, I said, how do you fill the other 30%? He says, we go back to the housing authority and they apply. I said, who is that? He says, it can be anybody. They cannot discriminate when federal and state funds are used for housing projects. They cannot discriminate who's in there. What does that mean? Okay, you have illegals here that the state endorses, they pay for, give them expenses, give them credit cards. And I said, I flat right said to him, I said, I grew up in a town that looks like the Dickens now because GE left it. It's a mess. It's in a financial shams. And then I ended up in Schenectady. And I said, I'll be damned. I don't want Malta looking like a Schenectady. Years down the road. And 700 units is just too much for our town at this time. Yes, I am all for responsible housing, but I don't think state funding is the way to bring in that size of a project to our town. And I spent the time, I heard them out. I went into their projects. I don't want to hear anything more from them. Thank you.
Answer your question, why? I don't foresee well, in my opinion, in the next year, with all these developers trying to put apartments over 1,000 in a 1.5 mile stretch on 9, it's a little too much for me. So, and it's all about timing. You know, one guy by himself 10 years ago, probably not too bad, but we got New York Development Group, we got the people in front of the loft, we got the people on Dunham Street, we got the racetrack, and then there's another one there. I'm not up for 1,000 apartments on Route 9. That ain't my idea of, you know, if we don't build anything here for the next 2-3 years, I'm okay with that.
And that's an additional 1,000 apartments.
Totally, well, total.
Anybody else? We'll move on then to the action items in our agenda, and there are several. Normally, this is an agenda meeting, but because it's the end of the year, we have things that we have to address. We have 3 public hearings that we want to set. I will note that all 3 of these public hearings are later in our agenda as a discussion item, so we'll be able to talk about them. The first one is to set a public hearing regarding the 2025 sewer scale of charges. It's an annual thing. They want to,
So forward.
Second.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Next is to set a public hearing regarding the 2025 license agreement with Malta Athletic Association.
Moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes.
Well, yeah, okay. This is to set the public hearing. I do have it as an agenda item to discuss later if you want to talk about the,
Are we ready for a public hearing? Isn't there another meeting on January 8th between the MAA and the town to discuss a contract?
I don't think so. Did we schedule, we didn't schedule another meeting. Our last meeting finalized this and the MAA read it and agreed. We agreed to the changes. I don't think we have another meeting scheduled with the MAA. Do we, Melissa?
MAA is tracking that there's a meeting on January 8th.
Oh, it might be the MAA is having their meeting. It's not a meeting with us.
Okay. Right.
Again, to discuss the specifics of the contract, I do have it later on the agenda. Any further discussion? Did we get a motion and a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This next one is to set a public hearing regarding the ambulance contract.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We have 2 bids to award. The first one is the contracts, the contract for the mid-block crossing. The low bidder was Newcastle Paving LLC, and they were qualified by Creighton Manning, so I'll accept a motion to,
I'm gonna, oh, okay.
accept a motion?
Second.
I didn't hear a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. So forward. Move forward.
Second?
Second.
Discussion.
I'm gonna abstain from that because I didn't approve of it from the start, so
Okay.
I am gonna abstain.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And Craig abstains. The next is, really happy to be able to announce that the bid, there was a low bidder for the Maltaville water system that we're planning to build. That was Bellamy Construction. Came in below budget, so I'll entertain a motion to.
Moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have 2 employee changes. First, we want to promote our working supervisor for the maintenance department to a facilities manager. That would be Terry Barnes.
I'll move it forward.
Any second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Well deserved. Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations. Next is to approve Assistant Water Superintendent appointment. We had an employee in the Water Department that our Water Superintendent would like to move to the Assistant Water Superintendent because he has performed well since he's been with us. And then we're looking and interviewing for another distribution person, so.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Tell TJ congratulations for us, Jean. Because of one of our court clerks having enlisted in the Army National Guard, Army Reserve,
Reserve.
she will be on leave, going for training, and so they The court has asked that we approve a temporary court clerk appointment. She is a court clerk in Stillwater that will come and be the clerk on court days for extra hand. So entertain a motion for that.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Last is a bunch of budget transfers. I mean, basically, they're all just end of the year things to kind of tidy things up. So, any questions on any of those? I'll entertain a motion for the,
Second.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next I'm actually adding a little something on here. Because it came to me at 3 o'clock this afternoon. So I apologize to the public that these have not been available to you. They will be available on the website. In the effort of trying to actually run our water department, we had our engineering consultant for water, our town attorney, our water superintendent, and our administrator with the water department, with some help from the planning department, to try to put together basically procedures and regulations. So sorry for the short notice. They will be available on the website for the public. These applications basically are for residential and commercial service for the water department. As I said, they were prepared by our water engineer, town attorney, our planning staff, and our water staff. What I'm basically, first of all of these are in district. So none of these applications are for anything that's out of the district. That'll be a whole different process if somebody wants to try to get service outside of the district that this town board established. They'll have to come back to the town board. So they're just the regular guy on the street that's in the district that wants to get water, any businesses that might want to be built. So you have a whole series of things. I'm basically asking that you take the time between now and our January 6th meeting to look them over, see if you have any questions. We would like to be able to adopt them on January 6th so that we can actually do business in the water department.
Cynthia, if I could comment real quickly. These are there's a couple other pieces of information in there, like our escrow policy, but there's two other big pieces that aren't finished yet for the board that will still need to be considered. The reason for getting this to the board now is because we know that there's nothing happening in the next week or two, that they would love to read these rather than spend time with their family. But in reality, it's because we've had the water department for a while and we really need to start moving this forward. The two pieces of information that you don't have, the engineer and I wanted to have them done. There's just some minor things we're still sorting out, but they would be for construction projects and design standards. They're probably 95% done, and the engineer for the water district and I were unable to connect today. We're going to talk tomorrow and try to finalize things, if not tomorrow, as soon as possible, so that we can get these out to the board and then ultimately to the public, because the water department needs to be able to approve hookups and tell developers on what they need to do in order to design and build the systems. So these are the easy ones. The design standards are largely engineering with some legal, and a lot of we have a benefit of, at least, that this is an operating water company and they have a long history of the way they do things, but it needs to be somewhat standardized so that future connections can all connect without an issue. If one developer does something one way and another does the other next, we're stuck with a problem that we would have to pay for. So these design standards are being reviewed, and we'll have those to the board, as well as the more lengthy application for subdivision approval and connections and new constructions to extend water lines and things of that nature. That's a more elaborate, we're still trying to keep it relatively simple application, because it involves obviously construction, inspections, escrow, insurance, things what's before us tonight, and this is draft and preliminary, is to say, hey, I'm in the district, I've never actually had the water, there's this, stop right outside my house, I want to put a line in and I want to connect. How do I do it? Well, you need to complete this application, have it reviewed by the water department, and you can hook up. And there's a fee associated with it. For residential, it's $1,500 for the hookup. For commercial, it's very similar, but you have to pay a fee plus the cost of the meter. The reason for that is the meters can be more expensive depending on the amount of water. So these basic systems would be for things that are, in the existing district that have water service to the property and they just need to hook up. The more elaborate one, which is still to follow, will be for the new construction aspect of it. So none of it's set in stone, but the water department is aware of projects that are being completed, as well as residents who want to hook up in commercial properties. So we need to get this wrapped up, and that's why I apologize for the short notice and just having it done today. But I didn't want to wait to the 6th. It's another 2 weeks. So this is all, a work in progress here, and we'll get you more information. Same goes with the public. We want to keep you involved as much as we can. But Mike and I were only able to connect around 3 o'clock today, and I sent it over to the supervisor saying, I know it's new, but I think we need to start moving this forward. So I apologize for the short notice, but it is a project that we need to hopefully get approved as soon as possible.
As we get the information, I'll get it out to you, so you'll have it
Question,
timely
Steve.
fashion.
Yeah.
Who's the engineer
That
you're
Yeah, the town appointed Mike Harrington. He was the engineer that had previously been working with the water company when it was Saratoga Water Services.
It's Lamont
Yeah,
Engineering.
yep.
Gotcha.
We did that a while ago, so.
We've had several meetings with the water department, Julia, planning department, Cynthia and I, trying to come up with a process that works similar to how other things work in the town. So developers and individuals will be able to go online, get the forms, complete them. And what ultimately, and the board will get a resolution to this effect, once we get the forms worked out and you approve them, there'll be a resolution that sets forth the procedure and standards that's going to apply for everybody. And so we'll adopt that. We have a water district already adopted. We have a water local law that's already adopted. And now we're filling in the pieces with, great, you got to comply with those two things. And now here's the process and procedure. And these are the initial bones of it. And we'll be filling it in some more.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So next, does anybody need to talk about the sewer scale of charges from the Saratoga County Sewer District? So now we have a license agreement. As I said, we worked with the MAA, both of the organizations that are members of the MAA, our Parks and Rec, and our town attorney to come up with a new license agreement regarding the our association with the Malta Athletic Association. A couple of notes about this and the Malta Athletic Association. The MAA is a not-for-profit that has contracted with the town to operate our facility in Luther's Forest. It's a softball and soccer or multi-use fields facility. Since its development, it's in the tech park. And they also originally did field rentals in other parks. So we met and we came up with a license agreement to operate the facility that we think solves some of the concerns that we as a town have had with the MAA in the past. Some of the highlights are that, first of all, the Malta Athletic Association will only take care of the Luther Forest athletic fields. In the past, they also rented the fields at Malta Community Park and Shenandoah Creek Park. Now our Parks and Rec is going to take those rentals back in-house. We have added provisions to make the facility more available to a larger number of users. Some of our concern has been that it's really only used by the two organizations that are the members. So we're requiring that they allow free open time for pickup games and the general public, and that they actually have a coordinated calendar that's available to the public. So If your organization wants to go have a pickup soccer game, you can look on the calendar and see when it's free, and then go use our public park for free. It adds criteria to improve the communication between our Parks and Rec department so that Malta is aware of activities in the park. There have been instances where the fields have been rented for something outside their intended use, and we don't find out about it until afterward. Another one of the concerns is the finances. In the past, the town of Malta has been paying in excess of $30,000 a year for water and repairs and treatments and things like that. So this new license agreement requires the Malta Athletic Association to pay for those expenses. To cover the cost of those additional expenses, the members will pay additional annual dues. So it was originally set up, they paid $5,000 for a buy-in, and then they basically used the fields without paying rental fees. And so now that has changed, and they've agreed, the organizations have agreed to pay the annual dues. And it also updates and solidifies some of their financial reporting requirements. One of the things that they asked for is for us to move the financial reporting to June, from March. Not too much of a problem, I don't think. And the other thing that I think was problematic before is really just, like most things, communication. The organizations, the member organizations didn't really understand, their role and the role of the Malta Athletic Association. But with several productive meetings, I think we came to an agreement that certainly the directors of the Malta Athletic Association have agreed to, and, they presumably took it back to their organizations and got there. I also got a text from our Director of Parks and Rec that says that they do have a meeting, the Malta Athletic Association has a meeting scheduled on January 8th for their organization. So I'm presuming that they will be discussing this contract again and seeing where we stand on it. Again, all we're having on January 6th is a public hearing, so none of this is in stone yet. Any questions?
My only concern is having a public hearing before the MAA comes back and agrees to the final proposal. That's my only concern.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's my understanding that they have met, that the Malta Athletic Association has met with each of the organizations prior to this, their last meeting, I believe.
Couple things, they're two different processes, obviously. We're just because it's a town facility and looking for public to be involved so they can comment on what we're proposing here. We've had a long time relationship with the town, with the MAA, and it's been a great success through a lot of hard work of the members of the MAA. The one thing that lost in the shuffle of drafting the agreement is, all the work that those organizations do rather than paying dues. They're, taking care of the fields, lining fields, and that's gone from, really nothing. Obviously, it was great to get the land, but to now a viable recreational facility where there's multiple fields, softball fields, soccer fields, largely through a great private-public partnership with the 501c3 organizations that have participated in it and the town. It just hadn't been updated in a long time. And so, that's what really is going on. If the MAA has concerns with the contract, or the town board does after the public hearing, a couple things could happen. We could adjourn the hearing, we could keep it open for public comments, or keep it open for another meeting, or close the public hearing and still make changes to the agreement.
Plus, I'm not proposing that we act on this on January 6th, simply a public hearing. We would act on it then at a subsequent meeting.
Okay.
So they will have their time for review and concerns to be addressed. So-
Right.
My only concern there is that the current contract is up at the end of the year.
Right.
So we don't want it to sit around for too long.
Right.
Park's closed
Right.
at this time of year, so obviously, a little less of a concern. But we want to get it done, timely. But there's been a lot of discussions between the MAA and Like I said, if
We had
there's
several
issues that
meetings.
come up at the public hearing or
Right.
both on the town side and the MAA, the contract can still be changed after the public hearing.
Any other discussion on that? Next is we, of course, have to enter into an agreement with the Malta Stillwater EMS. This agreement is not really any substantially different than it was before. It is a one-year contract. Well, eventually, we would like to have a multi-year contract, but we agreed with them to have 1 year. They did request that we increase what they can charge for their services, and we did update this to honor those charges. It's been a while, so that's what they, would charge.
So the two major changes from prior years are the paragraph discussing the charges to
Right.
individuals that use the services. That's the one change, and the other is the dollar amount. Everything else, there's been just
the same.
Paragraph 13 changed to just make it a little cleaner. It's about ride-alongs. If any of you want to ride along with EMS, you're welcome to. They'd encourage it. But when it was first drafted, they weren't full-time staffed and they needed more requirements. And now it's like, give them a week notice and you can take a ride along to see what's happening in the EMS. Those are the only three major changes, updating the dates, obviously, and some typos. So the big item for the board really is the amount that was budgeted in October is the amount that's in the contract. And then the second piece is the update of those fees, which we as a board have to approve for them to keep those fees. So not only in our contract, but it'll be in our resolution that we approve these fees. And it's just under the town law, the way things work. It's the town is contracting to provide services, but through the EMS, and we have to approve those fees and acknowledge that they get to keep those fees.
So any other questions about that? Again, we have the public hearing scheduled next time. Fourth item is our stormwater management officer has requested that we amend our stormwater local law. The proposal is, so what you didn't actually have the local law, because all we still have is the red line version, which when I get that, it'll be back up for everybody else to see. Basically, what the local law is amended to be is that it will give the stormwater management officer the authority to, at their discretion, to require stormwater controls on properties less than 1 acre. Right now, the state mandates that you have to have a stormwater management plan for any construction on anything over 1 acre. But as you know, here in the town of Malta, we have a lot of properties that are well under 1 acre that want to build stuff, and it's problematic. We have a lot of drainage issues down by the lake, and really our stormwater management officer has no control over that. So this would give her the discretion to be able to require a stormwater management plan and make the homeowner actually enter into an agreement to maintain that plan.
So is that a binding arbitration that the stormwater management person can put on a person, or is there any recourse to appeal that, or how's that work?
Well, if we do this, we'll be updating our local law, so it'll be written in there. The determination is, as in there, really requires there to be one of two things. Really, an environmentally sensitive area that's going to be impacted.
Right.
Or secondly, that it has a facility, and state regulations changed in September and have been updated, but we have some projects, say, within the downtown area that might be under 1 acre, but because they're small lots, they have to have facilities installed on those properties to improve the drainage.
That discretion, though, is that, a discretion like a gutter or a pond? How's that work? You said there's...
No, you got to comply with the rest of, the stormwater management. We have two laws, one local law and then a zoning law, as well as state law. So it's not to give the stormwater officer the ability to arbitrarily pick facilities, but if you're going to build a store or a residence in downtown or office space downtown, for example, that required an ongoing structure, that the town is obligated now under the new MS4 guidelines to have these rules and regulations to track, to report, to make sure that we're complying with everything as the state pushes more and more down on localities without funding them. She's got the ability to say, hey, you have to have this ongoing facility or infrastructure. So you've got, it's under an acre, you got to still provide us, not with a full SWIP, but a maintenance agreement to take care of this so that we can inspect it and make sure you go out there and take care of it.
So
The other area, as it would contemplate, is if you're in a, environmentally sensitive area that says like, wait a minute, we want to make sure there's no runoff going into that stream.
No, I agree there should be stormwater management on every new, thing is built. I just want to make sure it's standardized and it's like, they got this and how come I got to do that? I just want to alleviate that finger pointing,
Right, and as it's written, it would be because you meet one of those two criterias, or there's
Right.
other examples, but that there's an ongoing structure that needs to be taken care of. It's and that's not picked by stormwater. That's the design, the planning, the engineering requires it. So now you got to sign a maintenance agreement, and we're obligated now as a town to do a lot more with our stormwater, and this is one area to help address it.
Right.
Now, like anything, her action, has to be in conformity with the law and is subject to, review, and it can't be arbitrary. Or his, for that
Just
matter.
that word discretion. I wish I had all the discretion to do what I want.
Yeah, I mean, we can,
That may have been a bad word.
Yeah.
It intrigued me. You got me perked up. I'm like, okay,
Right,
maybe that's the
discretion-
position I should go.
fair
for.
point. I mean, we can tweak the
Discretion is not
language
really what-
to make
yeah.
it clear that, but it's intended
Yeah.
to be in these circumstances, she can
Right.
require
Right.
the necessary,
Because we get
maintenance and-
situations where, then the stormwater management system fails and there is no agreement between the town and it ends up being the town's responsibility and expense to repair it. This just really keeps the ball in the.
No, I agree with the whole concept.
Yeah.
I just didn't like the word of,
I know.
yeah,
You're right. It was probably.
arbitrary discretion. I live in that world,
Any other questions? All we're going to do next time is set a public hearing. So on January 6th, I'm proposing that we set a public hearing.
Yeah, and unlike those contracts, I mean, you're gonna have the actual local
Right,
law.
you'll have the local law.
Yeah, and.
Don't have that now.
And if you don't like the language of it, we'll push it out.
So next, we're going to put up the slide. So we did have a meeting with the consultant and about the proposed court. Unfortunately, there were only 2 town board members there, so we wanted to at least, discuss with the other 3 what the decision was. If you looked through your materials that we got from Labella regarding the court, there were 4 different options of where the court should be placed in the complex. This was the one that those of us there, including both the justices were there, and the senior court clerk. Planning's had an opportunity to look at this, and then, of course, the consultants think that this is the best location of the 4 that were presented. A couple of reasons are, first of all, it affords the most parking. It affords the most obvious circulation on the campus. If one parking lot is full because of any activity, then you can kind of see where else you might be able to go to park. We thought that it was a nice location because, well, first of all, the little square at the bottom is the current court. The building up at the top right is this building, and then the old highway garage. So in the very front of that is the Captain David T. Wallingford Memorial Veterans Park, not Memorial, he's still alive. And we thought that would be a nice vantage to have the court right behind it. There's no design of the building yet. Locating it was the first step. Thought that would give a little, it might highlight the Veterans Park also to have the court behind it. Like I say, the circulation was good. There are utilities under there, but everybody seemed to think that there was nothing major to be able to have to relocate some of them. So basically, I just want to know that those of you that weren't at the meeting agree with this placement or not?
I think my memory serves me correct. That's the forward-facing entrance door along with the park,
Yes,
1A or something. I think it looks great.
yes. So it would be right out here, basically. So,
Good position, I like it.
right, good. Matt, you're good?
Good.
Next, I sent everybody an email. We had, got together the chairpersons of the zoning board of appeals and the planning board, and the planning staff was there, and we got together the 4 candidates for spots on the vacancies on the ZBA and the planning board. All of the candidates were well received. So the planning staff and the chairs are basically the chairpersons made the decisions, and planning staff agreed based on the recommendations that we move Murray Eitzman from zoning to planning. We appoint Doug Fair to the planning board as an alternate. We move Greg Gorton, who's an alternate now, to the full member on the zoning board of appeals. And we appoint Cynthia D. Robertus and David Avenarius as alternates to the ZBA. So those are the recommendations for those. I mean, if you agree, they'll be made at the organizational meeting. There's another vacancy that we've had for a couple of years on the Board of Assessment Review. It's hard to get people that want to be on the Board of Assessment Review. But Donna Gizzi has expressed interest in serving. She has spoken to our assessor, and our assessor agrees that she could be a good candidate. So unless there's any objection, those will be on the organizational meeting. Any comments, discussions? All right. Next is something we've talked with staff about, and that is the possibility of changing our town hall hours. Right now, we've got some people have an hour lunch, some people have a half-hour lunch, some people come in other times. What has been recommended basically by our comptroller, and we discussed it at a staff meeting, and staff seemed to, say it was okay, is to change our town hall hours from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., and that everybody would have a 30-minute lunch, rather than some have an hour and some not. And so that would be a change that we would have to make at the organizational meeting, if you agree. Again, take some time. You can, talk to Julia about why she recommends it. And next, Camp Malta and summer rec fees. Our Director of Parks and Rec is requesting that we increase the fees. I think it's each one $10. I think it's $10. So Camp Malta fees for 2025 would be weekly, $175 per resident, $190 for non-resident, bargain. And $30 per week for AM or PM care. The Malta Summer Rec Program, which is the half-day, 6-week program, the fees for 2025 would be $210 for a resident, $375 for a non-resident. So basically, all of them are $10 increase. The reason for the request is, of course, the raising of the minimum wage. The rec program actually costs us money. The full-day program does not. So is there any objection to the board?
Oh, no, I think it's a great idea, and it's
It's still a
deal-
bargain.
It's a great bargain. We could afford to go a little bit more, if you ask me.
If there's no other discussion, we're getting down there. The stuff on the end is easy, I think. Next is just, something that we have to adopt. The 284 agreement, as you know, is the agreement between the town board and the highway superintendent to fund projects that he wants to see for 2025. We have the proposed 284 agreement with the highway superintendent. Tells you what he wants to, what streets he wants to pave and what stormwater stuff he wants to do. Any questions on that? That, again, will be at our January 6th meeting. Next week, or next meeting, we also will need to approve our Code Enforcement Office Education Conference. I think it's in Lake Placid. Isn't Lake Placid? It's in March, so it's just, basically a formality. The last stuff are agreements and contracts that are pretty standard. The first two are new because they relate to our water. One of them is a contract with Thai Sales, which is a vendor of water equipment for us, and Catalyst, which is the billing software. The contract with Catalyst hopefully will give us an opportunity to set up online payments just for the, residents to know that that won't be happening with their January billing, but hopefully by the next billing. No promises, but hopefully by the next billing, there'll be online payments. That's the single biggest thing that we've had people actually complain about since we've been in the water business. So those two. Helpco is our IT consultant, so that's for computer services. The Allied Universal contract, the contract that we read only has one guard, but our budget has appropriated for 2 guards, so we're expecting to get an updated contract with them for 2 guards by the time we actually adopt it on the 6th. The next 5 agreements are for basically services. GAR is our assessment service. They help with our mostly our commercial assessments. Bartlett, Pontiff, Stewart, and Rhodes are legal services for code enforcement. Vincelet Law and Hacker Murphy are legal services for assessment. And Miller Mannix is our planning and zoning attorney. And then we basically have 2 designated town engineers now, Swazo Doty and Associates and Labella. And then the last one is Labella for our Global Foundries code enforcement. And that, any questions on any of those? So with that, I want to make a last comment. Everybody left, but say it to you guys and those of you out there and,
Thank you for staying.
So I just want to reflect a minute on 2024, as this is our last meeting. We had a very aggressive agenda this year, and we accomplished a lot of good things for Malta. We bought a water system, we're building a water system, we're moving forward with pedestrian improvements and a whole lot more. And none of this wouldn't have been possible without the hard work of all of our staff and the support of my colleagues on this board. So thank you, everybody. And thank you to all the residents of Malta for making our town special. And I look forward to 2025 and everything that will bring. So happy holidays. Any additional comments?
Merry Christmas.
Yes, sir.
Woody Sloat from the southern part of town of Malta. I'm here,
The forgotten part of town.
the forgotten part of town, just like the forgotten part of government. But anyway, I want to wish you all a Merry Christmas. It's been a pleasure working with you this year. I appreciate you approving the temporary employee. As you know, we can't just hire somebody off the street. The court clerk we're hiring is a certified clerk, and she is the chief clerk in another town. So thank you very much. I'd invite any of you to come to court. I know our town attorney is well experienced, but we had the luxury of having 2 of our town employees come over and view the court and how it operates, which will be helpful when you're looking at the new building that hopefully will be done within the time frame that they claim it'll be done in. So, Merry Christmas.
We'll keep them moving, Woody, I promise.
Okay.
So,
Merry Christmas, Woody.
yeah, it's not surprising that that building is inadequate for a court because it was somebody's house once, I think. So. Yeah, it was the town hall. Was indeed. Anything else? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Merry Christmas.